Hello everybody, welcome to Sonictalk, episode 745, recording today live on Wednesday, what is it? It's the 1st of February, isn't it? We're in a new month already. I can't see that just throws up my notifications. Oh, where's my date? I'll take it as Wednesday. Let's say it's the 1st of February. If it's the 2nd, you'll have to sue me. I'm sure you're not setting your entire life events around my inaccurate description of dates on a niche podcast, which is to do with music technology. This is the podcast that we like to talk about music production. We talk about, it's starting to be AI as well now, because that's starting to move in that area. We'll have some topics a little bit about that a little bit later. Recording, performing, synthesizers, drum machines, software, instruments, the whole kind of gamut, everything that surrounds music technology, music production. So I want to welcome you all. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining us in the chat rooms. I think we may or may not have the cross-posting. Some of it's working, some of it isn't. I know we had a little bit of trouble, but I want to say thanks to Wagyu anyway for his help with the... what do you call it? Moderating. That's right. Keeping out the lonely ladies and other sort of spam that turns up. Because now we're quite popular. We get all sorts of weirdos and strange propositions turning up in the chat, which I suppose is good, but in other ways is bad. So thanks, Wagyu, for filtering for us. It's always very handy. So anyway, let's just say hello to some of our guests. We have two guests. I've got Paulee Bow, who we haven't seen for a really long time. Who is? Hold on, I have the button.
It's still on your
It's funny because I use it. It is because I use a template. It's just like, oh, that'll still be there. So it is still there. I'm very pleased to say. Paulee, of course, musician, performer, and is that an Amiga in the background? Chief interested in digital technology from the 80s and 90s. In fact, you did a great 5 minutes with the MC1, which is not, I mean, it's got its roots in 80s and 90s. Certainly the UI, perhaps you could say was, and the concept, right?
Definitely. It's not too dissimilar from like a JV 1080, basically.
Right. Yeah, it's quite similar, isn't it?
So it's just got more waveforms in. So I just I just went through and recreated some of my patches and my pads that I liked from that synth, and they sounded pretty much the same on the 101. So I was pretty happy with that. I think the reverb's actually better on the 101 than the old stuff. More DSP.
Yeah, you'd hope so. I mean, there has been a certain amount of DSP progress, one would hope, in the last 30 years, but maybe not. Maybe we don't deserve anything better.
Yeah. One humorous thing that happened was everyone thought it was Unique and you'd had a manicure or something, so there you go.
Well, I don't know. Well, yes, there were lots of comments on that, but it was a great piece, and I'm hoping I can persuade you to look at some more of those because it went really well. So I'm hoping that you'll be encouraged by that. So what else is going on? Because I know we know you've just had a baby. There's that going on. How's music? What else is happening in your life? We haven't seen you for ages.
I had labyrinthitis, which isn't as good as it sounds.
No, it doesn't mean you turn into an excellent songwriter able to write #1 chart hits with Emily Sandé. It means something completely different, right?
Definitely. You lose all balance in your ears.
Oh,
thankfully, I didn't get the tinnitus aspect of it, which would be an absolute nightmare as a musician. If it was like some kind of key like E flat, you'd have to just play music in E flat for a month, wouldn't you? Just so it didn't clash. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
Slowly getting better, but I'm recovered now, and I've been putting all my my energy into the Arcade Dreams soundtrack.
Oh yeah, of course, that project. Yeah.
Crunch time on that documentary. We've got like an episode cut now, so yeah,
right.
It's going really well.
Serious business. It's interesting. Labyrinthitis. My daughter had something similar, and it was really. Did you get the thing where your eyes just kind of are going like this all the time because your balance is off and you're looking for references, and it really affects? it's like being in. She said it. She described it like being. I mean, she's always been as a child not fond of feeling nauseous, as many of us don't. But she got a bit of a thing about it, and she described having what she had like being inside a washing machine.
Definitely.
And that is because there's not, even when you're still, you just feel like you're constantly moving around. It sounds horrible.
Well, you could sit down I could sit down for maybe 20, 25 minutes and it'd be okay. And then I'd go to stand up and maybe stand up too quickly. And I'd just be like Mr. Soft from the old Soft Mints advert, just completely. All over the place. So I'm glad maybe it's preparing me for old age, because people tell me you can't stand up too quickly as you got older. So
I don't think you get it quite so badly, but no, it's quite. I know Dave Spears had labyrinthitis for a little while, and the thing is, this is kind of really not nothing to do with music technology, but I think sometimes it can be caused by listening conditions. It can be caused by stress, heavy stress, because it burns the inner ear, and the ilia, which are inside the canal, they lose their ability to sense which direction the liquid's flowing in, which is what does your balance. But then your eyes and the rest of your senses are trying to compensate. I forgot where I was going with this, but I was going to say that it makes you. It can make you just really, really uncomfortable, and it's not not a. But there's a maneuver that you can do apparently, which is if you lie your head back, and then there's a sort of sudden twist, which basically what it does is resets the liquid in the canals, and it can help. It helps with that. But there's all sorts. I can't remember the name of the maneuver, but it's not a very nice thing to have happen to you at all. No. But so my condolences, and I'm glad you're recovered.
Yeah, it does go in the end. So if you ever get it, because a lot of people I know have got it virally from this latest flu. If you get it, just remember it will go within. I think it was maybe just over 2 weeks. For me,
it can be viral as well. There we go. Lady Aptitude says it's the Politzer maneuver, and I think that's right. So thank you very much. Cool. I knew it had a specific name. Anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll get back to you in a sec. We're just going to say hello to Mr. Matt Hodson, aka Maths, maths.com. Nice to see you, Matt. Nice to see you back with your lovely background, which we were so enamoured with last week. You look like you're a screensaver on an OS 9/OS 10 era Macintosh, which I think is not a bad look, if I may say so.
Well, yeah, if you want me to move out the way, everyone could just take a screen grab of it, and then you can put it on your desktops, and or even with me there like this. Take a screenshot now.
What a great thought. Maybe we could offer it to our Patreon subscribers, couldn't we? Who knows?
Do it in 16 colours and put it on my Amiga. There we go.
Yeah, get it on your Amiga. Let's do that. Anyway, lovely to have you, Matt. How are you? You've been, as you know, as we know, some people know that you're sort of setting up your new studio in a new habitation. So lots of stuff to think about, I'd imagine. Any great breakthroughs and new stuff going on this week? Because I'm getting some new cases for my modules, because as you might know, I've had them on the wall in the past, which has been really good. I've enjoyed having modules on the wall, so I've just sold those cases. They've gone off because of my new setup, and I've been looking into. I found this chap, and he did this great post on Reddit about how he made some module cases out of aluminium, and they're these kind of poles with screws all the way along them, screw holes all the way along them. Essentially, you can make a modular case out of aluminium very, very cheaply, and you can make it modular. So you can keep adding to it or detracting from it or changing the size of it, depending on what you want. Because as we all know, the thing about modular is you buy a case, and before you know it, you want another case, and then you're upgrading, changing cases. It's expensive. So I've been looking into designing a modular case, which is super, super geeky. Other than that, I've also been rehearsing, because apparently I've got a gig coming up in March. Oh, yeah, I forgot to say. Well, actually, I should, let me see, hold on. I think if I press the right button and then press the other right button, we have Sonic EMOM 2, which is, if I go here, yes.
Looking forward to this one. I
think it's that one. There it is.
Yeah.
Matt's playing. In fact, I've put you on the. You're on the bill there with a little bit of a video. What I'm doing is I'm creating a teaser. So every time we have someone confirmed, I post a thing on Facebook saying, "Here's some music of the act. Here's the act. Here's and that it all gets updated. And it just means that we can keep the ticket sales kind of going. I mean, tickets. It's only a £5 because we're just trying to cover the PA and we're getting an engineer to help us out stuff. So the room hire. But yeah, looking forward to this, Matt. Me
too, man. Really, really good, the last one. And yeah, if anyone's coming along, drop me a line. I should be around for the whole event. It'd be good to actually meet some of you in real life. Any of you keen sonic staters who hang around here, us weirdos, as we put it earlier.
Absolutely. No, it'd be fantastic. So, yeah, well, and that's really good news. So anyway, well, sounds like things are moving on a bit. Like I say, what have we been up to? Well, before I do that, I'm just going to post a little plug for our Patreon because I do. And I know that I recorded this ad when I had a cold, but hey, what can you do? I haven't had time because I've been in Poland, but I'll tell you a bit about that afterwards. Why not consider joining us on Patreon? For the price of a cup of coffee, you get ad-free versions of everything that we do. There's also lots of exclusive video. A recent one is another 30 minutes of Osmo's demo that we shot with Gaz and Christoph. There's patches, there's sample downloads, there's also all the pre-show Sonictalk stuff that we don't post anywhere else. If you want to join us before the end of the show and you pick our upper tier, which is still only a couple of cups of coffee a month, you'll get your name over the end credits. Thanks very much for watching. Yes, anyway, that's the plugs going on. But yes, so we've just come back from Warsaw. We went literally on Monday morning and came back last night. I drove back home. I got home about midnight last night. We went to visit Soma Electronic, the Soma Labs, Soma Synth. I don't know, Vlad Krimer and the gang who've got a factory in the outskirts of Warsaw. We did a little factory tour, had a good look at the Terra, which is now in production. So they've got 10 prototypes, and then the next batch they're going to be making. I'm just looking around the factory, and they've actually got real people who soldering things, through hole soldering on circuit boards. It's really old school, but they're banging them out. It's really interesting. Anyway, I hope that'll be coming up soon. We'll be posting some stuff on that. So that's where I've been. Interesting place. Never been before. I don't know if anybody else has been to Poland, but it's a massive country, absolutely massive. Really nice beer. That's all I will say. Although I can't remember the brand, and I haven't been able to find anything like it over here. They do a very nice wheat beer. But yeah, more content with that coming up. Anyway, that's just about that'll do there. Let's get on to some actual topics. While we were away, in fact, this got delivered. We've got one of these on the desk, so hopefully we'll be doing something a little bit louder. But let's just post. The new Pittsburgh modular Taiga, which is a 3-oscillator.
And driven by the goals of pushing analog synthesis technology forward. Taiga is a showcase of our most creative and exciting new ideas. The sound of Taiga can be attributed to 3 uniquely Pittsburgh innovations. These enable us to not only create sounds that we would traditionally expect from an analog monosynth, but also to explore new sonic textures and performance possibilities. First, the signal path begins with 3 huge analog...
There's tons of video content that went out, and sadly we got sent them with the idea of doing a live stream with Richard Nichol, who I really respect as an engineer. I think his designs are fantastic, and he said, the stuff he does with Create Audio, they sound great. Unfortunately, Gaz was away last week, and we were in Poland this week on the launch day, so it wasn't to work, it wasn't to be. So top tip, manufacturers, if you want us to get involved, give us a little bit more time, and then we may be able to work something out. But it just didn't happen. I'll come to you first, Matt, because I know you're into modular, right? Have you got any Pittsburgh stuff at all? I mean, because it's been a while since we've had something new from those guys, isn't it?
Mate, absolutely. Actually, Pittsburgh is one that I do not and have not owned. And
really?
I don't think there's any particular reason for that, Nick. I'm not prude when it comes to what modules I'm buying by which company or anything like that. But I don't have any of their stuff. I'm not sure why I don't. Maybe I should have a look at that stuff because I was impressed.
Yeah, I'll tell you where you could start. I mean, this would be a great start. It's a big one, but if you're looking for small, the Captain Big O, which is actually the Create Audio one, but that's designed by Richard Nicol, has got the kind of the heart and the guts of wavefolding a multi-wave oscillator, and it's like $150. It's really affordable, and it sounds absolutely brilliant. So it's worth checking that out. And it's an interesting thing. What they've done with what they've done with this is it's got 3 oscillators which wavefold. So they also wave shape, and they wavefold waves that don't usually are not usually foldable in analog, and they've figured out a way to do it so you can wavefold square and sawtooth and have an actual meaningful timbral shift through the wavefolding, and that's quite unique. And they are analog oscillators as well. So.
Yeah, the key message I've got from this, actually, from the videos I've seen, is analog. Because they did that kind of precursor video to this as well, where they were really pushing that analog thing, which, again, that's never been a thing for me. I'm not an analog or digital purist. I really don't think about, am I buying a module that's digital or analog? But having said that, if they've been able to achieve what seems like they've not been able to achieve before in the analog domain, then great. And I must admit, I've listened to the demos, been super impressed by the quality of the oscillators in particular from this, particularly hearing some of the FMing going on, and love the layout of it. It's about the same size, I think, of like a DFAM or something like that. So
Mother 32, yeah.
Mother 32. So we're seeing this kind of plethora of these kind of desktop synths coming out that are semi-modular, and they've all got this kind of same form factor now. And I kind of like this. I really do like this. I think it's that middle ground, isn't it, between having a pure Euro rack setup and a synthesizer. You've got this kind of middle land of a semi-modular. You've got filter, you've got mixers, you've got oscillators, you've got processing and all that kind of stuff in one unit. So, I think the price was about $799 or something like that. Which,
US, which when you consider what a Mother 32 would cost you, that's quite a lot of synth for the money. And I think what's happened is because they've been working with Create Audio, who have figured out how to take sort of boutique manufactured electronics and make it more scalable, that those cost savings have been sort of brought back. But it's definitely the primo brand. But yeah, I would agree, Matt. I mean, it's got their filter, which is also quite a nice filter, but at the same, and it's also got a dynamics module which has got a low pass gate. So you've got kind of 2 tonals. Each of the oscillators will tonally shape, and so will the low pass gate. So it's quite an interesting set of tonal variations. I mean, I've had a little bit of time to play with it, and it's quite interesting. The first oscillator is tunable over, I think it's plus or minus a fifth, but the second one, the second 2, really wide. So you can switch the pitch off and use them as mod sources or and they go right down into LFO and right up into that world. It's kind of an interesting set of parameters that you got to work with.
You've got a built-in MIDI to CV converter on this as well. So, anyone out there who's thinking, about buying something like this, and then they haven't really been into that kind of world of semi-modular, and you're just using a computer still, then this looks really good, because you can interface your computer with this outboard really, really easy. So those of you who are thinking, I don't really want to get into that world of desktop semi-modular, because I'm more used to working in box, I think this is a good stepping stone in that direction for sure.
It does have paraphony, which I haven't explored yet, and I'm not sure quite how that manifests itself through the MIDI to CV gate, or whether it's internal routing, but that might be something that's a sort of interesting additional utility as well, but to be able to do that. I can't remember, Paulie, whether you're modular, a friend of modular, or whether you're sticking to what you have, but you do have some modular, right? Down there. Yeah. Okay, I do beg your pardon. I can't believe I would cast aspersions.
Remember, I got out at 6U 104 HP, and everyone congratulated me. But yeah, I've got one Pittsburgh module, and it's amazing. And I'd recommend if you can get one, because it's discontinued and secondhand. It's called the DNA Symbiotic Waves, and it's a digital oscillator. a digital dual oscillator with two 8-bit oscillators that have about 16 shapes each, and a knob in the middle that blends those oscillators in about 8 or 10 different ways, like bit crush, ring, sync, stuff like that. So it's, if you pair it with a nice filter, you get sounds akin to like the old Ensoniq ESQ1 kind of vibe, you know, the digital oscillator into the analog filter. So that's a real good one if you can spot one secondhand. But yeah, I love this stuff. You'll have to tell us your thoughts, Nick, on this compared to the now discontinued MFB Dominion 1, because it's a similar setup, isn't it? 3 oscillators, each with FM in between them.
Yeah, but they don't. The heart of these oscillators is wave folding and wave shaping, whereas the Dominions are more about analog waves, but then the cross modulation between them. I would, yeah, but just having 3, and it will also play with paraphony, like I said. So there is. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
Yeah,
that's a fair point. Cool. Well, I know the Dominion's way bigger. How's that for an initial?
There we go.
The Dominion's about 5 or 6 times larger. There we go. That'll be it. I'll just use that. That'll do. Available now. Like I say, $799 US. I think we have. Yeah, we've got the webpage up here. $699 US, $799 US. Not sure what it gets to by the time it gets over here. Maybe they'll be affordable. But I think, even though. It's not an insignificant amount of money, but it does seem like you're getting quite a lot for that amount of cash. So, 2 envelopes, only 1 LFO, but it goes into audio rates. But you could repurpose one of the oscillators to do modulation duties as well. So there's an awful lot of potential there. And I've only just really scratched the surface. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a thing with me and Gaz, because Gaz got sent one as well. We're going to do a thing with 3-way between me and Gaz and Richard Nichols. So that should be an interesting piece, or maybe we'll dig a bit deeper and get nerdy with kind of patching ideas. Because, I mean, that's the thing with these things, because it's quite the wave folder, it's complex oscillator stuff is very much a West Coast vibe. I mean, this is obviously a blend between the two technologies, but there is a certain approach to getting the best out of that West Coast oscillator and the sort of applications you do for it and the sort of patching ideas that you have. So hoping I might get get schooled in that from Richard, because he's definitely the man to talk to there. Okay, I was just
thinking.
Oh yeah, go.
Just on this one, the releasing of this, and it seems like they're available. I'm just wondering, is that because this company has been waiting on chips to become available, and now they've suddenly become available, and this product is the first thing that they can get out to market? I wonder if this was something that was scheduled for about a year ago as well. I don't know. I just start firing in my head about all that stuff.
I don't know. You may well be right. It may be something to do with that. I mean, I suspect the complexity of it and the manufacture process, because I'd imagine it's not hand built, because it's quite small. It's going to be kind of, so that maybe there's just, because sometimes you have to and fro a few times. You get, this isn't working yet, this needs tweaking. Because I'm sure I saw some version of this at Superbooth. They sort of brought over a suitcase and said, we were going to show it, but we've decided not to this time. And I saw it last May. So you might be right. It has been around about a year. I mean, I'm sure. And I think they've been talking about it. It's not the first time it's been discussed, but it's the first time it's been properly released. But there's great videos out. Luke Pop's got one. I think Bo Beats has got one. And I think that Robin Vincent has got one as well. So do check all of those out. There's a lot there. And I think Richard has got a bunch as well. So yeah, there's lots of, and we'll just be adding to that canon of videos. But ours will be great as well, obviously. Let me just have a quick word from our friends over at iZotope.
iZotope's OZone 10 is the future of mastering. The new version includes the Master Assistant, which matches your master to any reference file. The advanced version includes a stabilizer module, adding mixed clarity with an intelligent and adaptive mastering EQ, and an impact module, which enhances the rhythm by controlling microdynamics. Don't forget, you can use the code SONIC10, that's SONIC10, at iZotope.com/SonicTalk to save an additional 10% off any one-off software purchase. That's SONIC10 at iZotope.com/SonicTalk.
Thank you very much, Dom. She's going to be accruing some massive royalties over this, I imagine. And although nothing compared to the ones he gets from his fabulous Christmas hit that we. If you've been following his appearances of Sonic Talk, we talked about at the beginning. But yes, I want to say thank you very much to iZotope for sponsoring. If you want to head over to Sonictalk, so iZotope.com/Sonic Talk, they've got a special landing page with details on the coupon to use, Sonic 10, to get 10% off any software purchase. Much appreciate their support as ever. Right, okay, what have we got next? There's a whole bunch. It's really interesting. I mean, the zeitgeist is, isn't it, at the moment, is AI. There's a lot of talk about AI and a lot of talk about machine learning and all kinds of things. I think I think this was you, wasn't it, Matt, who sent this one a couple of weeks ago. We didn't get it in last week, so I'll play this. I'll play it, and you can tell me if it was you or not. I think it was. So this is Basic Pitch. I think it's...
It uses machine learning to transcribe the notes you play into MIDI. It's free, open source software and doesn't require any special hardware. In fact, you can use the demo right on our website. For this demo, I'll use this recording of a tune I wrote.
That's horrible, but
well with other phonic music and pitch.
I think you can hum into it, and it'll do, on the web page. It's really interesting. It just as a great utility for starters. I'm not quite sure what Spotify have got to do with it. I'm imagining that they're going to be able to pull all sorts of metadata, which will build their massive, huge database of stuff that they've got on us and music, which may not be the most benign use, but it could be useful for just sort of pitch to MIDI. And the fact that it works in the browser is kind of interesting. What was it that kind of piqued your interest?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. First is you've seen something like this in Ableton now for years, although I don't think they're using AI in there. But Ableton's got that inbuilt, convert audio to MIDI, which generally works really well. I use it a lot, actually, particularly when I'm doing remixes and I might be sent audio files over and I want to convert that to MIDI. Brilliant. But I saw this and, I was piqued interest. One, because it's from Spotify. So that says to me Spotify doing other things other than, being a streaming platform, or they've got interest in doing this. I mean, why would they bring something like this out? What is it that they're testing? I kind of feel like this might be a precursor for something much bigger. Maybe I'm just getting a bit...
Data set. Collecting a data set for something, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'm just being a bit of conspiracy theorist there or something. But, why them? That's quite an interesting one. And I think the other thing is because it's free. If you don't have Ableton, then you can jump on here and you can do this. And it's really easy to use. And it just says to me that this is like the tip of the iceberg of some technologies that are being introduced to us slowly by different companies. And where's this actually going? What is the benefit of Spotify releasing something like this? What can they do with that? And as you mentioned, Nick, data set.
They're collecting it. They've got to be collecting a data set. They've got to.
Yeah.
Spotify wouldn't. I don't think Spotify do stuff for the good of the community, if I'm perfectly honest. But there may be a spin-off of it. It says it's brought to you by the researchers and engineers at Spotify's Audio Intelligent Lab, because they pull all sorts of data. Because also, I suppose, the stats that they collect is like how far people listen into certain tracks, whether people skip back to sections of tracks. So if they've then got the MIDI data of that track as well, so they'll know the key, the sequence of notes. That's all kinds of things that they could use to maybe build moody or popular playlist selections or clips for social media. There's a kind of, because it extracts the data that they can then pull, because if they run all their music through it and the MIDI data, which is going to be tiny amounts of metadata. I mean, even though it's polyphonic I don't know, it'd be interesting. I don't know, what do you think, Paulee? Is it something that is of use? I can't really think what I would use it for, but I just think it's cool.
Can we talk more about the conspiracy stuff? Because that's really interesting.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
So,
why not?
Evil tech giants and stuff. So for the past, I listen to quite a lot of songs and albums on YouTube, because I can't ever remember the Spotify account login on my phone. And I've noticed in maybe the past fortnight or so, when I've been listening to songs and then an advert comes on, the advert is in a genre and key that is kind of appropriate. Do you understand? Say I'm listening to an 80s classic or something. The advert will come on for a car and it will be kind of 80s-ish music that isn't in a key that's complete. And I'm wondering, is this some kind of AI subliminal advertising where maybe the advertiser's message will go in more if you're not pulled out of the experience? Do you know what I mean? But if everyone could just see if they notice over the next few weeks, you're watching videos on YouTube, especially music videos, just see if the adverts are randomly appropriate, you know? Like there's a funk song when you've been listening to funk, there's a 80s song when you've been listening to, you know.
And it's got the key as well. That kind of makes sense, because then it's not grating, is it? It's going to be, because as we know, I think YouTube, I don't know what the stats are, but for a long time, YouTube has been one of the more popular music streaming platforms, even though it's for video. And it seems like it's an enormous waste of bandwidth to be pulling down, you know, a slideshow or some Mandelbrot animation just to listen to your music. Yeah, but it does seem to be the way. So maybe maybe you're right. Maybe it started. I mean, there is a common theme developing here, because there's some other AI stuff that we're going to be talking about today, which is. Yeah. It's starting to feel like we're getting, you know, this stuff always seems nifty. You go, that's cool. But then when you sort of maybe extrapolate from it, you sort of think, well, is it for the good of mankind, really? Or is it just going to create some massive evil robot AI intelligence thing that before we realise it, we'll be able to replicate itself and also draw and generate its own power, because then you know, as a species we're doomed.
like a cyborg auto-tuned Justin Bieber kind of robot.
Oh my God, can you imagine that? It's Matt, what have you done? I'm not sure you expected this level of this conversation to come out from it. Or maybe you did.
No, I don't mind, and let's not pretend we know what AI is either. Let's not pretend any of us know what this is going to mean for the future of music, or even in education. We're seeing students using AI tools to write essays and things like that. There's an awful lot of adjustment going on in education. There's a lot of adjustment going on, I think, in terms of, well, let's put it this way. You've seen a lot of people losing jobs left, right and centre that have been focused and working in audio areas, some of those being composers and things like that, because of the tools that are available now to write music for an advert or whatever. As we're probably going to talk about, there's some really, really interesting stuff. But looking on that Spotify, I was just looking on the Spotify R&D website, some really interesting stuff on there. They're doing things to do with belief propagation, which I think it's like to do with message. Well, yeah, I think it's to do with like message passing on in a type of algorithm. And then there's something interesting called audio concatenative synthesis, which I had to look that up myself. And that is, concatenative synthesis is a technique for synthesizing sounds by concatenating. Yeah, thank you. Short samples.
Concatenating, yeah.
That's it. Thank you, mate.
Trackers.
Maybe that's the title.
It's like trackers.
Yeah. Taking short samples of recording sound, basically, and using them together. So they're doing some interesting stuff here. So we've got to keep an eye on this. You know, there's a lot you can say about Spotify and streaming platforms, but then there's an even lot more you can say if they're getting into the kind of music creation side of things, or deep learning audio generation, because they say that they are doing this AI in collaboration with artists. It's all there on their website. It's very, very interesting stuff. None of this is going to go away either.
It's interesting when you say in collaboration with artists. I wonder if the collaboration is implicit when you just basically sign up for Spotify and it's just a clause in a contract that you're never going to read, because it says they could do whatever they want with whatever they are streaming on your behalf, which is often the case. You know, it's the same with Facebook and all the other big tech. It's like anything you upload to these places, it's like you may think it's yours, and it sort of is, but that doesn't mean that it can't be repurposed in an ad for a service that they could get paid millions for, because they ultimately will own. Anyway, that's a bit dark, I suppose, but I think the technology is interesting. I mean, where I'm a bit uncomfortable is the kind of notion of it being applied to things that we won't necessarily be able to tell the difference, or not care enough about the difference between it being generated and it being, created by an actual human. I suppose we will when the lines blur, we perhaps will lose the ability to discern. Because we can't be bothered. It's too difficult. It's like, oh, that's catchy. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like, it's K-pop. So hold that thought. I'm going to play a message from our friends over at Baby Audio, and then we'll come back to it, because we've got another topic which is linked. And I think if we, link them together, it's probably a good idea.
Baby Audio make creative effects plugins designed to add colour and depth to your mixes. They won Plugin of the Year 2021 in Future Music and Computer Music magazine, and they were nominated for the SOS Awards 2 years in a row. Crystalline is an algorithmic reverb plugin inspired by classic 20th century studio reverbs, but offering higher fidelity thanks to 21st century computing power. A reverb plugin with a variety of creative features, such as the ability to tempo sync pre-delay and reverb decay times. You can get 15% off when checking out with the code ST15.
Once again, we thank both Dom and Baby Audio for supporting the show. It's very much appreciated. Okay, so this sort of brings it in. I'm putting this all together so that we could, if you're not interested in AI, you can skip the chapter markers and you can get onto some other stuff, which we'll talk about as well later. This was another thing. I think this is Paulie. You found this one. Let's see what number it is. It's number 6. If I press this one, this is also linked. No, that's
Meet
not
Basic.
it, is it?
The previous one.
It uses machine learning
That
to
is the
transcribe
previous
the
one.
notes
Hold
you
on.
play into MIDI.
Wait a sec. I'll find it in a minute. Let me see. I just need to find the bloody...
Has AI taken
Where's
over your
my mouse?
controls, Nick?
It has. I don't know what's going on here. I know what it is. I just need to... I haven't actually put it in the system yet. You'll have to excuse me. But basically, this is... What we're looking at here is really the... it's Google's Music ML. Music... yeah, here we go. Music... LM text. There we go. So I'm going to go here now.
In the rapid growth
Oh,
of text-to-image,
there we go.
text-to-video, or even text-to-3D AIs, we have witnessed the future models generating visual contents in a way that we have never seen before. The text-to-image generation aspect has created...
This is a really good video essay by a chap called ByCloud. And these are essentially examples of Google's LM
music with a few
technology
text prompts, and the whole music
with text prompts. So you say, I want a racy, sporty, kind of uplifting
together
music
by an
bed,
algorithm.
and it'll...
It's a pretty interesting idea since it might guarantee
And it makes
some
it.
decent sound quality. However, this
I think he's really gushing in his praise for how good it sounds. I wouldn't say it sounds great, but what's really interesting about this is it uses a specific data set, which is a set of musical samples. It's like 5,000 musical samples, and these are like trackers, so that it's very similar to the concept of tracking, where it just basically seamlessly or relatively seamlessly joins a bunch of described samples together to create, in some cases, quite convincing pieces of music or interesting and unusual compositions. And that is, this is sort of going on from where Spotify is. And it's a really, I find it quite terrifying, because what happens when we can't tell anymore?
Sure. I've got my tracker going behind me, by the way.
Nice.
Because you keep saying tracker, so I was like...
It's voice-activated tracker.
This one is absolutely fascinating, and I think this might turn into a mental health podcast for 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Of course it.
But
yeah.
I think your feelings towards this kind of tech, towards AI, are going to be largely guided by how much of your self-worth you put into making music. How much, how much worth do you give yourself for your musical output? And it's something to be aware of, because I, as an individual, put a lot of worth on my musical output. And it's something that started from very young, because being autistic, when I played a piece of music and people clapped, it was kind of the one of the few times where people would actually be nice to me, if you understand.
Right.
The rest of the time,
It's a positive response. Yeah.
Positive response. And I think that creates such pathways in the brain that it's almost kind of, this stuff feels like a bit of a threat. It means, well, is this something that's going to take away a learned source of positive response? Now, of course, as I've grown in life and been able to learn to replicate social skills and to replicate other people, I know that a lot of people like me for a load of different reasons other than my sheer musical output. But I think because these things happen young, I think it's still ingrained in me. So if AI does become a thing, if it gets really, really good at producing music, and I mean kind of music that is, doesn't sound like something that's been put together haphazardly, that's got some thought and some harmonic, kind of interesting cadence to it, then that's going to be something I'm going to have, and I and a million other people are going to have to take to therapy, basically. Have to just be like, damn computers took our jobs. So I'm aware of that response, and that's why I've not got my torch and pitchfork yet, and I'm not going down to the Google factory because I know that
I think it's really interesting, because you've also got to bear in mind that the interfacing with creative individuals is either a joy because they completely understand you. If you're a film director and you're working with Hans Zimmer, who presumably is massively successful because he's really good at interfacing with a director and giving them what they want and making them feel ownership of the idea and all of that sort of stuff, then fine. If, on the other hand, you're talking to somebody and you need something or other for a musical purpose, and you don't really understand dealing with creative people, you don't really want to, then you're just going to go, press a button, I want that, can you just type in what I need and I'll get that and that'll be fine. But then what ultimately happens then is, we then stop valuing that, and I think that's that's what concerns me. It devalues that whole thing, and it makes almost creativity more of a, because there aren't many people whose creativity just falls out of them. It's like breathing, and there are a few, and we're always very impressed because it's so amazing. Jacob Collier could just kind of turn around, grab an instrument and play something that makes us all go wow. I mean, to varying degrees depending on what your taste is. But most of us can't. So, there might come a point where it's not worth the effort. Let's just press the button, and that's what worries me a little bit. I don't know what you think about this, Matt, because, obviously, you're dealing with teaching people to survive in this creative industry, and it's sort of worrying, right?
It is kind of worried. That there is a worry, and I think Paulee's got loads of really great points there, absolutely. I also do sit on the other side of the fence, which is that as an educator, we need to look at actually including these kind of things within the curriculum eventually. These things are not going to go away. These are tools that potentially myself and other people are going to be using, whether it's for audio generation, visual generation, writing essays, whatever. And they can be tools that can be really good. The ChatGPT can be really good as a tool for helping for research, not necessarily academically sound, because then you're going to have to go away and look at your sources and that kind of thing. But nevertheless, it's still a tool. This for creating music, again, it's a tool, and you could find some really interesting ways of using it to create sequences that you can't currently do. So I like to think of it like that. And there are going to be some people who are going to use this and they're going to go random, creates a new track. That's it. That's my track. And there's going to be, I think there'll be a lot of that. And I think there'll be a lot of it of people who use parts of it. And I think there'll be people who will just use this exclusively and they'll do very, very well. And I think we've already seen the first AI pop star, didn't we, get signed to a label? It's now been dropped. But
because
supposedly
that's right. That's right, because the raps they generated, and this is the thing, because there's no concept of moral viewpoint, so a lot of the raps and a lot of the things that are generated were considered to be not inclusive and racist and sexist and misogynist, and that was a major problem, obviously.
That is a problem, and I don't know if you know this, but my understanding is that ChatGPT has it won't reference particular racist, misogynistic, homophobic material. My understanding is that actually it already has filters built into it. So I guess my question is, can we make it filter out particular types of music like boy bands and take that?
Well, I'm sure you can.
I don't know.
Well, okay. Here's a bit of here's a bit of thoughts. At the moment, it only generates 24k hertz bandwidth, which is not great. I mean, it's adequate. It's like a crappy MP3, quite a crappy MP3. So hopefully that will be a signature. The other thing is, when you were saying, this takes me back to the point where it's like Blade Runner, where the whole premise of Blade Runner is they have to hire special people to tell what are robots and what are real people, and the robots have to be kind of, because they've sort of jumped over the divide. They're no longer under the control of the creator of the robot. They've gone rogue. They just do their own thing, and nobody can kind of cope with that. This is actually much closer to that whole scenario than I'd care to like. It sort of feels like, this is not far away from that. I mean, it's more benign. Obviously, music's not necessarily going to kill you or go rogue or has any sort of physical attribute. But I think it's a really sketchy thing. I mean, we all go, wow, isn't that amazing? And we can be impressed by it. But actually, the ramifications of it it's like Asimov's rules, isn't it? The robot rules that you can only make a robot that cannot do harm, that can't do, there are things that start out that way. Like one of Google's things, wasn't it? Do no harm. I mean, that didn't last long, did it? When in the face of commercial pressure and realism. So we need to be careful, really careful, I think, with where this goes and then who's in charge of it and what they use it for. This is probably getting outside of our remit, but it is music technology. I mean, this could have.
It's not going to go anywhere.
One thing you could do is you could write something, tell the MusicLA that there is no interface for this at the moment. I'm sure there will be at some point. But if you just sort of said, right, okay, I'm going to write me a racy, sporty music bed, please. You get the MP3 file or the WAV file, and then you load it into the Spotify engine, so you get all the MIDI out, and then you can basically interpret it and revoice it and maybe fix it. Things that'd be some work, I suppose, but it feels a little bit sketchy somehow. I don't know. I'm a bit concerned, frankly. I feel like maybe we should go analog suddenly, and I'm gonna go for this, because this is about as analog as you get.
I got a wall. Got to.
I better not play any more of this, because I'll probably get busted for it. This is Guinness World Record holder for the lowest for planet. I think it was just some kind of something to for a signal path. I'm not sure what the advertising thing is. One that Chris Midiera found and posted on the site, and he's got the lowest voice in the world, on the planet, recorded, shall we say. There may be people with less voice. Me, after a big night out with a cold, I could say maybe I could get there, but probably not as mellifluous. But what a beautiful sound, and what an effect a voice that with those characteristics has on you. And this is the sort of, I suppose it's an antidote. I'm bringing full analog into the deal to do this. I don't sing, or I haven't sung since I last wrote a terrible demo about teenage and love. So I can't really qualify as how difficult it is to sing that low, but. You sing a bit, Paulee. It's astonishing that a human can make that. Apparently, he can go down to 40 hertz. He has a 10-octave vocal range.
Should we see how low we can sing, each of us?
Low.
That'd be fun.
That's about as low as I can go, I think. I don't know.
Low.
I was bored. Matt?
Okay, let's see.
Not so low. Oh, that's almost throat singing.
That's my lowest.
I think the real challenge with this is not making a low voice face, because it's not as an attractive. It's not an attractive attribute. It really is.
Low voice face.
Interesting. But he has the ability to sing in a kind of tombrelly attractive way. He's not having to constrict. He's able to still use a lot of his vocal, his mouth to articulate. I just think this doesn't really have any point other than aren't human voices lovely? And you couldn't do. I suppose you might be able to do that in AI, but maybe not. I don't know.
I just love the way you
we're getting a lot of comments.
You can almost hear those kind of individual oscillations when it gets really low. You know, when you get an oscillator and you go really low with it, and it just becomes clicks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost there.
I wonder. I mean, his vocal cords must be massive. I mean, because for them to oscillate that slowly, they've got to be a certain length. It's really interesting. I know what there's not much more information other than the actual kind of isn't this amazing, I'm afraid. So I don't have an awful lot to go for. The musical arrangement by John McLemore, written by K.D. Summer, 10 octave range, 40 hertz, the lowest note he can sing apparently, which must be quite hard to record because not many microphones will go that low, but. Yeah, it must sound like infrasonic, isn't it? Like a crocodile or an elephant or something.
You're attracting random animals or something like that.
He's singing as he walks through the trails, and he's followed by bears.
I was kind of interested in like if that's affecting his brain because of the vibrations are so low and hard. You know, if that's could that be sort of semi-massaging his brain to an extent that it's actually causing him damage, or his eyeballs may start vibrating?
I want to see him move objects across flat surfaces. That's what I think that would be good. I think that would make party trick if at all you could do it. Anyway, it's literally there's no other real there's nothing else to say about that. I just wanted to do that. Yes.
Have you ever seen vocal cords? Because I had a throat problem once and they put a camera down my throat and got me to sing just to see how I was singing, to see if that was the problem. It wasn't the problem, actually. It was something else, but some medication I was on was drying out my throat. But vocal cords look absolutely disgusting. They can sound beautiful, but they look like a face hugger doing this.
Yeah, they're like threads of red material, aren't they? Yeah. Yes. That goes back to your heavy curtains kind of the quip at the beginning there. There was like vocal cords, heavy curtains. What's the difference? Okay, maybe that's the show. I'm going to briefly mention this just purely because there's a chap who comments regularly on our thread called Woody Forest, who is very apoplectic about all the things that we don't talk about. And he's been banging on about the MPC XL, which I will play. Is it a thing? And this is... apparently there was an article on Gear News. Apparently there's a piece of code that was released which has a reference to a new MPC model. I have no idea about this. I don't know if anybody does, but it's 35th year of the MPC apparently this year. I don't know if anybody knows anything or if anybody's really into the idea. I mean, I'm guessing personally what's more likely to be, if it's MPC XL, the thing it's most likely to have is going to be more polyphony, more RAM, more storage, because I can't see how it would have, more pads would be weird because it wouldn't be an MPC then, it would be a different thing. I don't know if anybody has any insight or would care to share what they actually would like to see in an MPC XL.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because the MPCs, the new ones, are already quite big, aren't they? And you've got the screen and everything, and to make them even bigger, then it becomes impractical, really. So I'm thinking it's probably something with more I/O, maybe something that you can interface with more things. easier. Yeah, I mean, how many pads do you need for an MPC just to keep adding more and more stuff like that? So yeah, I've really no idea what this is, but it's interesting. I mean, it sounds to me like Akai are keeping their eye on the ball with all that. I mean, I'm still using the Force. I love the Force that they did over an MPC. I went with that just because it's very close to my heart in terms of using loop triggering, kind of like Ableton. But not only that, in the latest update, you can actually use it now to, you can use it as like an audio, you can use it to generate CV and send it into your rack. So you could plug it into the Expert Sleepers DC coupled sound card, fire MIDI out into that, and then it'll fire it straight into your rack, which is really, really cool. It's a brilliant thing. I might be using it actually at the EMOM gig next month as the main brain. So I really like that. So yeah, XL, anyone in the chat know anything about it? Drew drop us in there, but
well, no, because apparently, according to Woody, the entire internet is aflame with it, and I couldn't actually find any concrete references as to what it might possibly be. So I think that maybe he was exaggerating somewhat, but I'm getting back to him because he's been actually really quite rude in the comments, and this is my way of just giving him a little nudge, say, cool it, bro.
Somebody in the chat, Bohemes, just said maybe it includes a vinyl disc cutter add-on. That'd be great.
Now there's a thought. What a great idea. What a great idea.
Yeah.
I know it's interesting. The MPC is, I mean, it's like a religion. I mean, anything with MPC in the title always does well because it's like clickbait. People just love it, and there is an entire generation of music creators who just totally dig that. And it's interesting what you're saying, Matt, about because there's that forking of the kind of what was the OS that went also into Force, but now Force has got its own hardware characteristics that now need a sort of different development pathway. So I don't know whether they've kind of painted themselves into the corner, but what do you think an XL might be then, Paulie? Oh, you're muted. Or have I muted you? No, you're muted.
I'm muted. I was just saying, as long as it's Akai beige, we're good, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure that the X was. I don't think it's that. I think there's the dark blue, or I can't remember. I haven't had one in my hands, so I can't really comment on that. I mean, we've had Andy Mack, who's a great demonstrator, come in and show us various things. The last thing he showed us was the keyboard. But I think, Matt, you're probably on the right track with the maybe more I/O, more memory, more anything else. Because I can't think what else they could put in it. You know, that maybe they're going to put all of the sample packs in it together with an SSD, so you just get all of the MPC you possibly can in one purchase, and you're sort of pre-buying all of the stuff that it can do. But I mean, to develop something which has that much more I/O and that much more capability, I'm sure there must be limitations to what a CPU, the Linux core and the CPU can do in there. I mean, unless you're putting two and somehow mangling the interface so that they address them separately. I mean, it would take such a massive amount of development, increase the amount of I/O, whereas the memory and the RAM, the storage, those are things that you could actually change quite easily. Maybe, you make a nicer case for it, but essentially the brain is the same. So I hope that will satisfy Woody's desire for anything. Now we're probably criticising for not knowing what we're talking about, which obviously we don't, because it's just conjecture at this point, isn't it? And that's the whole point. Anyway, let's get a question, shall we? Shall we get into a couple of questions? Let me see. Oh gosh, there's actually quite a few coming in. Yeah, let's have this one because I think this would be quite interesting. So this one is in from Ben Ackland via YouTube, and he says, any advice regarding the new M2 Max versus their M1 predecessors? I don't know how any of us will have specific to do with large sample libraries and high virtual instrument effect track counts. I can speak to this a little bit because ultimately the efficiency in the processing, the actual kind of the virtual instrument and the polyphony count is not a problem, even on base level ones. When you're getting into virtual instruments which maybe have a lot of samples, then you're having to spend a lot. You need the RAM. I mean, the disk I/O is incredibly fast on these things, so it can move memory around very, very quickly. I'm not sure that all of the current sample-based instruments will have that level of sample management when they're dealing with limited amounts of RAM. I mean, it would require a kind of very specific set of code. So essentially, you know, if you need a lot of sample-based stuff, I would imagine your best bet is to buy a configuration with a large amount of RAM, because you can't add the RAM afterwards, but you can put a lot of RAM in the new Mac Minis. Well, actually not Masses, but certainly the Mac Studios. But it's starting to cost a lot of money, because that RAM costs a lot of money. It's almost too fast for sample stuff. I mean, it's a waste to use it just for samples, because it's so fast, and the disk is so fast. So I don't know if there's a specific answer to that, but I mean, certainly for processing, polyphony, and you know, just sort of VST count, then I think the new ones, M2 will just give you a bit more. I don't think the M1 will give you the M2 will give you or M1, you'll get a massive difference, but it's the RAM that is going to make the biggest difference. You probably see this. I imagine, Matt, you have to, you know, talk people through how to use large orchestral sample libraries, and you know, for their media composing setups, and they run into that sort of thing, because presumably you can't have the biggest specified computers for every student to use in your courses. I mean, it'd be ridiculous. They cost so much money, you know. So
well, not only that, every year I'm part of the big discussions about, you know, what we put on the computers for students, and there's only so much space on the hard drive. It's right, what do we put on that? What DAWs? What software do we put on that? What virtual instruments? Because everything's got to be on that hard drive at this moment in time. Even though we give all the students a terabyte of cloud storage, that cloud storage, as we all know, is not fast enough to stream sample libraries from, or even samples really. I mean, thinking about that. I mean, you've got things like Loop Cloud, for example, which we don't currently use, but that allows you to stream samples, doesn't it? Almost in real time, straight into your DAW. So that for me, if we get to that point where we can do that from cloud storage, that'd be amazing, because I've got quite a lot of cloud storage. I'd love to run stuff on there. But we're always telling students exactly what you've just said, Nick, which is RAM. It's the big one at the minute. And save yourself a bit of money right now. Get the M1. Make sure it's maxed out with RAM. You'll be happy for many, many years, I'm sure. I remember the days, back in the days, when you used to have basically all your samples and recording stuff running off a separate hard drive. You know, when you was using a physical spinny disk hard drives, just because you'd get that, sometimes you get a bit of jitter or something like that from the fact that the drive's trying to read and do the EOS stuff, you know, physically moving that needle about, and then you're also trying to write audio at the same time, so you'd have to do it on separate. Don't have that problem anymore. Makes me feel old.
No. It's interesting. I mean, this is one of the things that I know. I mean, this isn't like an Apple kind of advert or anything. I mean, but the new M2s and the new the Pro versions, the disk bandwidth is bonkers. It's something like 8 gigs a second. I mean, it is more than you will ever need for. And these are this because it's designed for moving large video stuff around. It's almost, the disk has almost become as fast as memory used to be. The memory is even faster. I don't know what it runs at now. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I know, Paulie. I mean, you know, in Amiga world, it's not the same sort of issue that you have, right?
No, we're dealing with like megabytes here. No, so my director has an M1 for editing using DaVinci Resolve, and absolutely loves the kind of speed and bandwidth and stuff like that, you know. But I was just looking up the difference, and apparently the M1 has 68 gigabytes second memory bandwidth. That's just going from memory to memory. And the M2 has 100 gigabytes. So that's, you know, another 30 gigabytes a second. That's not from disk, though. That's just, you know, memory bandwidth. RAM to RAM. Which seems, I mean, even 68 seems kind of ridiculous, you know, for most uses.
Yeah, but apart from big sample libraries, that's when you're going to run into trouble, because it's there. I mean, where stuff can get moved around, but like I say, I don't think the sample management engines are designed to utilize that sort of level. They're utilized to load stuff into RAM really quickly, but not necessarily ditch it off and move. Because you could actually, if you were really being clever about it, you could move stuff around so incredibly fast that it wouldn't trouble you. But I don't think anybody who's written a sample playback engine is going to have invested that level of expertise in managing that super fast bandwidth. I think that's probably what we're talking about. I don't know if that answers your question. I do hope it does. I realise it's perhaps a little more. This is one for you. Paulie, I think. Let's have a look. So this one is from MIDI129 via YouTube. What's your go-to sampler for anything non-drums? Anything off the radar? That he did say modern, but that doesn't. Modern could mean an awful lot of things, like post-Steam, post-industrial revolution, or last year. You choose.
Let me think. If I go modern-ish. Sometimes, I mean, of course, I kind of run Contact on my PC, which is just really quick. But I really actually quite like the Korg Nautilus for samples.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not running loads and loads and loads of things in gigabytes of stuff in there. But the engines are quite interesting with what you can do with samples in there. So you can bung them into the FM engine as an operator. You can run them through. One thing I quite like doing is you can only do it monophonically. You can run a sample through the MS-20 engine and save that just as a preset. So that gives quite a different... playing with those MS-20-ish filters gives a nice distorted thing.
That's the Nautilus there, right?
And it's got a few gigs of sample memory that you load off hard drive when it boots up. And it loads. The thing that I like is it loads in sound fonts, which I'm used to using. The old Creative Sound Blaster sound fonts.
Right. Interesting.
Which are super quick and easy to make, set your key splits and stuff and then bung them in and they work fine, just as an important thing. So yeah, I quite like the Nautilus for that kind of thing. But the rest of the time I'm using old samplers, bouncing it into the Amiga at low bit rates, or I'll be going into the Ensonic or the Korg DSS-1 with the analog filters. So yeah, it's usually old character samplers that I use. Just
right, and is that because of is that the A to D and the D to A stuff, and just the sort of general grit that those low resolution samples provide?
There's a bit of grit, and the analog filters on some of them add something. But the main reason is it kind of just makes me feel if I'm not in a rush and I don't have to just rely on using software instruments to get a sketch out super quick. It just kind of feels cool, and it's like my happy place, just messing around with hardware. I just really, really actually enjoy it.
Yeah, no, nice. I'd just like to point out my quip about 8 gigs a second. It was way off DDR5 RAM. I think RAM just to put that in there. Mental Frisbee is schooling me on the speed of general RAM. So I bow to your bet. It was more of illustrative purposes only, I would like to say. And Matt, I'm guessing sampling. I mean, you use Bitwig. I don't know. Do you use the 1010 Music stuff, the black box, and all that kind of thing? That's a powerful one, isn't it?
Yeah, so powerful, man. Really, really powerful. Small form factor, touch screen as well on it. And the question was about non-drums. I usually use it. I do use it for kick drums and a few loops, but the main reason I use it is for it does that auto sampling. So if I've got a really cool sound within the modular, just like some really weird, like wow, 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 you could just plug it into that and it will do a multi-sample across the range of however many octaves you want at what division of keys in one go, while you go make a cup of tea. You come back and you've got a multi-sample of a weird noise that you've made in your Euro rack that you could never get back again. And it's dead quick. I fill it up with stuff like that all the time. And then sometimes when I'm playing live, I'll use that to play back CV that I've recorded into it. So I will
it will record DC stuff, will it? Right, okay.
Exactly, yeah. So if I've got a very complex envelope going on, well, you know, again, that you couldn't recreate if you tried, record that in. And then a lot of people was asking me actually in the last gig that I played what I was doing, because you'll see me tapping on the bitbox in time, which is generating these complex CV out. So I'm able to, in real time, play complex CV, and send that out to different places. And that might open a filter. It might send something to an effects send. It might pitch something.
That's really interesting.
Do it all over. So I love it for that. Really, really powerful.
I've kind of toyed with the concept of the idea of sampling CVs, but that really makes it so. In the black box, does it allow you to, when you do a multi-sample, is that all of the slots taken care of, or is there a clip sort of type that is a multi-sample, if you see what I mean?
No, you've got so many cells. I think it's 4 by 4. So yeah, 16 cells.
So it'll fill them up.
You can fill that up with audio, or you can fill that up with CV. Well, you see CV just like audio. So mine's the 1010 Bitbox Micro 2. So it's the even smaller version.
That's a top tip. Well, thanks for that, and thanks for the question. I hope that's answered a bunch of questions. Well, we seem to have covered an awful lot. I know there's a bit on AI, but I think we're going to have to watch this. I think this is going to be creeping into our topics a lot more, because I think this is accelerating so fast. I mean, there's other news about AI. Is, you know, we were talking about this yesterday. Vlad is a very deep thinker about these. Vlad Kramer from Pulsar, Sonar Electronics, or Sonar Laboratories. I forget which it's called. Sonar Europe, let's call it. And it's really interesting to hear his thoughts about this, and the way that, you know, just the facts and figures about how some ChatGPT in some cases can outperform the most of the population when taking, you know, certain types of examinations, shall we say, for instance, and they'll get anything from average to above average results, in sometimes good, you know. So we have to keep an eye on this kind of thing, because it's coming up fast. And in musical applications, you know, while we're very geared around recognizing patterns, we're perhaps, you know, that's our biggest defense. Humans are good at recognizing repetition and patterns, and maybe that's where that'll stop us from being overrun by robot chart music. Who knows? Anyway, that closing thought, we'll say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. Thank you also, Paulee. Paulee, you're back to doing soundtrack work after this, presumably? Is that you straight on the case?
I've actually got a few days off, so I might do some video or something for Magical Synth Adventure, you know, and
excellent.
Or maybe some more video for you guys, you know, because it went so well.
Oh, well, we'll talk about it. Nice.
From the ball and chain.
Right. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, and Matt Hodson, you've got a stream tonight, right? We've got to plug that at the beginning. You're talking to Jamie Liddell, are you?
I am, yeah. I've got Jamie Liddell on at 6 o'clock on my YouTube channel, and I saw him on Instagram. He basically posted this crazy looking patch. He's got a massive modular setup, and it's kind of like, what's this? He's going to take us through it tonight, because he's basically built a kind of modular looping machine, and it looks really, really interesting. And anyone familiar with Jamie's work, you know that he's been working in that kind of loop world, looping stuff for many, many years through different iterations with his past in using stuff like Pure Data and Super Collider and that kind of stuff, through to using the Flow machine and now through to modular. Seems to be his natural progression. So he's gonna take us through it all. So join us at 6 o'clock if you want to ask any questions and get involved with the chat. It'd be great to see you all. Thanks for having me.
I just tried to put his Instagram up, but that's what I'm getting. The browser can't cope with me asking to show me an Instagram photo, because it's a big modular thing. But that's going to be really fascinating, and that will be on, what's the name of your channel? Is it Maths at Maths? How do you get to you on YouTube?
Maths. If you just go to maths.com, you'll see it as the link at the very, very top. You can go there, hit subscribe, and if you hit the bell, you'll get notified whenever we go live.
Fantastic. And I want to say thank you very much to all our chatties. I think we got some of it working. We've still got a couple of things to figure out, which is some of the cross-posting's not working. But I'm able to get, if you're posting questions now via YouTube, I get to see those. I want to say thank you, everybody in the chat room. I've fixed the thing that I broke. Nice to see you all there. And also thanks to our Patreon supporters. If you're interested in supporting us, feel free to join us on patreon.com/sonicstate.com. No, Sonic State. You'll find it. I'm sure it's not that hard. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you very much. We'll see you all next time. That was the end of Sonic Talk. We'll see you later. Bye-bye now.